Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how I cut acrylic with my OMTECH K40 Plus laser machine. I see a lot of people on Facebook groups asking, how do you cut your acrylic and what settings does everybody use to cut their acrylic? And sometimes I'll jump in and reply when I see these kinds of posts. However, I just figured it might be easier if I just create a video and show you guys how I cut my acrylic on the 40-watt CO2 laser. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you guys as well is something that I've been playing around with, and that is sublimating onto acrylic, because I don't have a printer like a UV printer or a UV DTF printer, so I don't print directly onto acrylic. Most of the times I will engrave and obviously fill in with a pen, but sometimes I want to put an image like a face or a picture onto acrylic for a keychain, or most commonly in my case, I like to make golf ball markers, and I do have an order that's going to be shipped out tomorrow. It is for a custom golf ball marker that has a picture of a lady's dog on it. So I figured I would show you guys how I cut acrylic and also how I sublimate onto the acrylic. Now, a couple of things when it comes to cutting acrylic. The OMTECH K40 Plus laser machine, it is designed to only cut up to 3mm thick acrylic. However, though, I have had a comment previously on my videos saying that they can cut up to like 6 or 10 mil thick acrylic, but I personally am not going to try that. I don't need to cut that thick of acrylic. I personally find 3mm is thick enough for me. Sometimes it's too thick, and I do have 2mm thick acrylic that I prefer to use in some cases. So apparently, yes, you can cut more than 3mm. I have not tried it, nor do I want to. I don't need to. The other thing as well is that when you are cutting acrylic, you're going to find that it is the most likely to catch fire. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind. Yes, timber can catch fire, but it is most commonly found that acrylic starts fires in your laser machine. So never walk away from the machine while you're cutting acrylic. Make sure your air assist is on, and make sure your settings aren't too high so that you are burning the acrylic, creating that fire, and always have a fire extinguisher nearby. I personally never created a fire with cutting acrylic nor with timber because I have air assist. Obviously, the OMTECH K40 Plus is an upgraded version of the original K40, and it comes with air assist. So fires are kind of, prevented with the air assist that's already on there, and I never turn it off. So I always make sure I'm nice and safe. So personally, I can't say I've had a fire before from acrylic or timber, but I don't want to have a fire because that would be my absolute worst nightmare. So I don't want to cut anything more than 3mm. I like to stick to what's recommended for the machine, and that is what OMTECH recommends for the machine, so that is what I do. When it comes to the type of acrylic you are choosing, you must make sure you pick the correct type of acrylic. I personally don't actually remember off the top of my head the names of the different types of acrylic there is, but obviously if you are buying direct from an acrylic supplier designed for laser cutting, you're going to be fine. I buy all mine from specific laser cutting websites, so I have had no issues cutting through my acrylic. But I've also actually bought acrylic off Temu, really cheap. It was like 20 bucks for a pack of these squares, and it actually cuts amazing. So in saying that, it is obviously cheap acrylic, not from a laser cutting website, and it still cuts well. But I've read and been recommended that you don't buy just any willy-nilly type of acrylic to cut. You must use a specific one. A few things that I've learned along the way when cutting acrylic is that it's really important to make sure that your distance between your acrylic and your nozzle where the laser is coming out is at a really specific measurement. If your laser head is too far away from the acrylic, then it's going to create really fat burns, or fat lines in your work, and it won't cut all the way through. The closer it is, obviously, it's going to cut thinner and more neatly as well, and more accurate. Another thing that I started off when I started using the OMTECH K40 Plus laser machine was I was not using masking tape to tape up on the side that I'm cutting on, and it was awful. I much prefer masking my work now. The only time I will never mask my work is if I'm just creating a simple circle and I just want to cut it out real quick, because it doesn't burn, it doesn't leave marks or anything like that. But when it does come to intricate designs, and especially engraving, masking tape is key to be using. One thing I've noticed when it comes to using double-sided tape on the back of acrylic, so 3M tape, which is, I've got a roll here like this. So this is the 3M tape you can use on the back of designs, so you can stick it onto your artwork easily once cut out. This takes a lot of settings to get right, because I find that this paper on the back, it burns. Even on a very low setting of heat power that I use. Unfortunately, sometimes I still get a little bit charring on this, and especially with white products, so like white lettering onto a backing, you can actually see some of that black charring of this stick into the double-sided tape, and you can see it around the edges, and it really bothers me despite how much I try to clean it up. So it's one thing to make note of. This stuff is fantastic for larger projects. When working with items like this, quite large products, I find that it's easier to be able to cut out the 3M tape on its own and stick it to the back of the item. So I do an offset inward and then I stick it down so I don't get any charring. However though, when you come across items, when you are cutting out really fine little pieces of acrylic lettering, you will generally find, let's see if I can try and show you guys, but it might not work. Usually there at the letters, you'll be able to see some black. So all through here, there is usually some black. There's a bit of black in there as well. And it's really hard to clean. I use a toothbrush to clean my work, but with that black charring on the back of this 3M tape, it is impossible to get out because the black charring sticks into the 3M tape and then you're sticking it down. So it's really challenging. So just keep that in mind when you are using 3M tape. For intricate little fine detailed work like this, it is a bit of a pain in the bum, and sometimes it's just better off being glued down. And then for items that are larger like this, it's easier to go ahead and cut out just on its own the 3M tape and then put it on. This is a roll, so this obviously is already stuck to itself, so it's not going to be easy for me to be able to pre-cut this roll in my laser machine. However though, I do have some sheets that have got some paper on the back here, and you can see here, this is what I used to cut out this prior to sticking it down. So that is a top tip. If you are doing larger pieces, cut it down, do an inward offset, then stick it on, and you won't get that charring. You can probably see a little tiny bit of charring on the outside there, but that was on a really low setting. I think that was on like 15 for my power, which is the lowest my machine will go, because obviously anything less than 15 it's just not really cutting. So that's just a top tip from me as well. Okay, let's jump into the rest of the video where we're going to cut some acrylic, and I'm going to share with you my settings and what I use. I use Lightburn. I love Lightburn. I did not bother with laser GBRL because I tried it and it was just so hard to configure and use, whereas Lightburn is a lot more user-friendly for anybody, especially just starting out. So let's jump into it. So starting off, I have got this 2mm thick white acrylic, and on the front you can see I have the masking tape, and on the back I've actually left the tape that came with the acrylic when I got it from my supplier. And this brown paper does burn, so that's why I do take the top off first and then put my own masking tape, which is that big roll there you can see. And I bought that for $70 in Australia for this massive roll, and it's going to last me an absolute lifetime. So I've gone ahead and placed my acrylic into the machine and secured it down with some little tabs I got from Temu, and I'm going to go ahead and make a ball marker. Now, apologies, the background you'll hear tippity tapping, it is my dog running around, so apologies. Now for this golf ball marker, this is the custom one that I am making at the moment for a customer on Etsy of her dog. So for this 2mm thick acrylic on the OMTECH K40 Plus laser machine, I'm going to be doing a line function with 7mm for the speed, 7 for the speed for millimeters per second, and 40% for power. Now when it comes to the power for thin white acrylic like this, it doesn't need to be that high. I have actually adjusted it down a fraction to 35% power because it cuts through so easily. Because it is white, it's just perfect. Next, I'm going to be using this marble acrylic. It is like a swirl style acrylic. One side is a bit duller than the other, and the other side is vibrant. So I put masking tape on the vibrant side that I want cut. And the problem with this type of swirl material, I find, especially with the light colors, is that you can see the swirls in the sides of the acrylic where it's cut. So because this is a dark brown, you actually can't see it too bad in the sides, and it kind of blends in with the top swirls because they are originally dark. However, though, I do have some baby pink colors, and they are so hard to work with because no matter what I do, I just can't get the swirls on the edges to look nice. especially when there is glitter inside the swirl material. I've got some with glitter in there and it goes black and it looks charred. And the light pink swirls looks awful, it looks dark and grey and I don't enjoy it. So for this dark brown, I'm going to be making a cookie dog tag, and for the cookie sort of choc chips, I'm going to be doing a fill, and I'm going to have it set to 150 speed on 20% power. And for my line, I'm going to be doing 4 seconds for the speed, for 4 millimeters per second for the speed, and 45%. Now I am going extremely slow for the speed because it will not cut otherwise. That's kind of the lowest I'll go for the speed on this thick acrylic is 4. The lower the speed, the less ridges you will get in the sides of your acrylic. But for this, I don't have to do 2 passes if I have it on 4 for my speed and 45% as my power. So I find that setting works absolutely perfect for me. Now, when it comes to any kind of painting you're engraving, I like to use just acrylic paint pens. I've got this Pasco, whatever you want to call it, paint pen, and leaving that masking tape on top, obviously, so that it doesn't bleed through and it only fills on the engraving. And it works absolutely perfect every time. And then I went ahead and put a decal on top with my Cricut machine, and it looks super cute. Next, we're trialing out the Temu acrylic. Of course, you can see I've already done some cuts on it, so I know it works. So I'm just going to be making this cute love heart tie tag. If you remember the original tie beanie babies? Is that what they were? Beanie babies back in the day? But I'm going to be using this acrylic anyway. So this is the cheap acrylic I got from Temu, so not from a direct supplier. So this is just going to show you guys that this does actually work quite perfectly. And I'm going to be doing 7 for the cut for the speed and 40% power, 150 for the speed for the engrave, and 20% for the power on the engrave. And I don't really change my engrave settings very often unless I'm doing timber, but I generally keep it at 150 for my speed and 20% power because that's the type of engrave look that I love on all of my products. So that is my go-to. Now, let's jump into sublimating. So what I do for sublimating is I get my graphics that I want and I edit them in Canva or sometimes on Procreate. And then I go ahead and I print them onto sublimation paper like this, and they're very vibrant and bright. And I use my sublimation printer. So you can't just do this with a normal printer and normal ink. This must be sublimation ink on a sublimation printer, and it has to be done that way. You cannot use a normal printer with inkjet or laser, whatever you want to call it. It has to be sublimation. Now, I went ahead and created an offset for these 2 Super Mario little tokens, golf pins, whatever you want to call them, just little examples basically. And I've gone ahead and made sure I've lined up the picture perfectly to the offset acrylic that I cut. Again, this is just that 2 mil thick white acrylic, so same settings as earlier, and just trying to align them up the best I possibly can. And I am using heat-proof tape, of course, because the heat press, you have to use that. And the original golf ball marker that I am making for my client is here as well. Sorry, there is a motorbike going past my window, super annoying. So this is my heat press, and I am using 190 degrees for my temperature, and I'm doing 60 seconds, putting them down with the acrylic on the bottom and the sublimation print at the top. And I'm just loosening the pressure here at the top so it's not pressing down too hard on the acrylic, and setting the timer. So when it comes to your acrylic in the heat press, yes, it does make the acrylic pliable. Regardless of the thickness, it is going to heat up that acrylic and it will bend and warp. So if you don't leave it to set on a table under a heavy surface, you will have a wonky, warped piece of acrylic. So you must make sure it's all nice and flat. Now, when you peel off the sublimation paper, it can get really stuck to the acrylic, just like any other sublimation surface, and it will leave behind a white substance on top, which you will need to clean off. It is just part of the paper that is embedded into the acrylic, and ta-da! Look how stunning that print is. It is so vibrant. Any kind of sublimation on white acrylic is going to be vibrant and beautiful. Any kind of bold colored acrylic sublimation will work. Dark, it's not the best. Clear, it is going to have a clear effect to it with sublimation. So if you want the best result for vibrant, bright pictures on your acrylic with sublimation, I would suggest using white. So with these, because they're golf ball markers, I went ahead and put on a UV resin top coat, and I used a lighter to get rid of the bubbles before setting it and curing it under an LED UV light. And this is how they have turned out. They are absolutely stunning and I love them. I probably should have done the Bowser with a little bit more of a less offset around the outside, but whatever. Top tip for when it comes to getting rid of any excess bleeding, I'd like to use the orange dissolvent and a cotton tip, and it just comes off so easy and perfect. Nice and pretty and clean. After a very long day and having a lot of issues with my computer, you can probably see here in the background now, I have a completely different computer to what I had when I first started. That's because it is now like 8:30 at night. I am so tired and I have been stuck in this room all day because my old Windows computer that I was using for my OMTECH K40 died. So I had to bring the Mac in, and this is a really old Mac OS Catalina on like a 10.15.7 Mac software. I don't even know, my brain is not braining. Whatever the update, the iOS is, it's a really old one. And when you download the hardware for the K40 Plus laser machine to use, it uses a CH341 driver, and unfortunately these old computers, like old Macs, are not supported for that. So I had to go through and do a recovery reset on my computer and put the firewall down to allow this program to be working with my computer. So I will not be downloading any other files in my computer ever again. It got it working. It said it wouldn't allow the program to download, but it did because I went through and I kind of hacked the terminal system a little bit. And then after that, when I installed Lightburn to the Mac, I ran into so many issues with the computer and Lightburn not being able to read the laser machine itself. I had a lot of error codes. I had a lot of alarm codes. I was in beginner mode for Lightburn, which absolutely set me wild because I couldn't understand why I couldn't select and cut certain paths. Everything was backwards. The Mac was all in inches, so I had to set the Lightburn from inches to centimeters and millimeters, so that was a bit of a problem there. It took me a while to figure out, and then I had a lot of like speed issues and then having to adjust the settings now accordingly. So I had originally filmed everything on the Windows and that's all gone now, so I've now had to refilm on the Mac, so things might be a little bit out of whack in this video, but now I have to go through and up my settings a little bit. Speed is somewhat the same as the Windows computer, however though the power is different. I'm finding like another 5% power matches what the Windows was, so it's just refiguring that out again, but I'm pretty sure I got everything all matched up in the video as you just saw. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.